Howdy of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Black Friday. So, going into this film, I had a lot of fun watching this film just because the fact that you have the enemy in this movie be the shoppers and that turn into these zombie like almost turkey eshed like creatures weirdly because these monsters start to morph more and more as the movie goes along weirdly. I really enjoy this film because this movie is to have the theme of a retail store, well, technically a toy store, and it is actually accurate. Like, it feels like this is a real, legitimate place, and there's not much of any point where, like, I would say, oh, there's inaccuracies here, or this doesn't make sense, or, like, this doesn't sound like retail esh because I've been in a retail store for about a minute or two or a couple of years. And so like I could tell what kind of feels like phony about it. I think the only probably problem that I have with this movie because it's to have been a thing that is to be a little small cosmetic thing that is to be stupid to whine and complain about because like of course you would have this done the way it is done, but there's the one part in the back of this semi where this truck is to be fairly well lit. I can tell you from experience that going into a number of back of trucks, there is never a time where a truck like that is that well lit. Half the time you can't even see like what you're picking out, and half the time you like desperately want to go and like grab your cell phone to just kind of light your way because you can't see in any number of trucks. That is probably the only inaccuracy about this whole thing, but that's a nitpick. That's a cosmetic thing. But everything else seems very accurate to this. You would also think that people, if this is really and truly Black Friday, we would be seeing a lot of these people that work in this store scrambling a lot more. They would be having to be pushing out just a crap ton of product at the very last ditch second because that's normally what happens is you have a lot of people that don't plan very well for this Black Friday, and so they're having to like forcibly like push out all these pallets of product, and like it has a lot of obscure time taken to just be shoving out all this product before the store is to open. And this store seems fairly like everybody's just kind of standing around just kind of waiting for things. And I'm like, for a Black Friday, like I wouldn't believe these people are just kind of just standing away around waiting for things to happen. Plus, also in the very beginning of the movie, we have like Devon Sawa's character who doesn't even punch in for his shift. He tells the other kid that he's with to go ahead and punch in, but he doesn't for whatever weird reason. Uh, but we have a lot of these characters that are to be these really fun characters that I have fun just kind of enjoying as if I'm like having like like the story is like a snack and I'm like it's just an enjoyable little like looking back I'm like yeah this is exactly how things are. And like we have the one store guy at the opening sequence of this movie who's to call shoppers these vultures which I would never actually call somebody that, but I would just think that it's so absurd that like people would be like bashing at us at a door. It's like, oh my god, we want to get in. And like you can see like certain kind of onslaughts of videos where you just have people rampaging into a door like for Black Fridays and it goes insane. Where there's a ton of people like, and they kind of do it perfectly well in here where we just have one product left and people are like fighting for it. Like I was expecting someone to get like tasered or like maced or something. I was expecting that. Like it feels like they got some parts of this right, but I was also waiting for that like severely unreasonable customer, which that doesn't really happen in this movie. It kind of like we have characters who are or customers who are upset, but we never take it to an absurd level, which normally a lot of customers during this time go into absurd levels of negotiation where you just have to tell them it's like, hey, like if you don't want to buy this item for this price, then you can go somewhere else. Sadly, uh, yeah, they can go and do like price adjustments and stuff like that. They can go and uh, like if something is on someone else's ad somewhere, they can go and adjust the price. But just going into or through some jargon, it seems that we have Ken's character, who's Devon Sawa, who I guess is to be some backroom guy, and I guess also so is Michael J. White's character, who is to be Archie. Uh, so like I'm kind of curious, like why weren't they? You would think like immediately when they're punching in, they'd have to like scramble for a lot of stuff. But it even seems like Devon Sawa is to even have plenty of time to go and even have like some kind of video to send to his kids, just kind of playing around. Uh, and like the whole opening scene of this, there's so much about this that is to just be like, yeah, you could really tell that like if someone was to have not have worked like retail and wrote this movie, they really did their homework. A lot of this would probably be something a lot of actual store owners or retailers or just customer or people that work at a retail store would probably tell anybody. So this is actually pretty dang accurate. Um, and I'm probably just repeating myself by saying that, but like throughout the whole entire movie, it feels very accurate, and I like that for that. And but I also like that the shoppers are villains. It's fun. So at the end of the day, if you are a person that had worked in a retail store, uh, do work in a retail store, and across the board, definitely check this movie out because you'll have a really good time while watching it. If you're probably a customer who is to just be like rich daddy warbucks, or maybe you never worked in a retail job in your life, and good for you, uh, and you just want to really have a fun like Dawn of the Dead kind of movie approach to a zombie kind of thing, check this movie out. So without a doubt, let's just go into spoilers. It's basically pretty simple. Like the trailer kind of like helps you understand what this is. It's basically a zombie apocalypse that coincidentally breaks out during Black Friday, and then like slowly but surely we start to see people who seem to become sick for some random reason or another start to become zombies. It has this kind of like body snatchers like approach to it. I say that because the movie Body Snatchers has this weird way of infecting its person and like sucking the life out of them, where this thing is to go and latch onto somebody like a weird tether or tentacle kind of thing, and then it goes on to turn a person. And so like whereas Body Snatchers, it basically just like takes the person and like sucks them into mush, and then like they basically are crumpled up in little pieces, and then you have the other Body Snatcher person, which isn't the same as this. So uh yeah, other than that, really fun thumbs up film. Really enjoyed it. I liked this so much that it like I think it's gonna become like hopefully I have time to consistently come back to this and watch it again, just because I liked this so much. Like this would be like a very top high movie for me. Like probably somewhere in my top 10 just because of how like I really enjoyed this. This was such a fun movie. And so at the end of the day, go out of your way to find this. Currently right now to the second of this recording, I think it's on Vudu for like a rental kind of thing. I could also recommend people to Google search and go into apps called Fox HD Movies, search Fox HD Movies. You have a logo that says so, but a title that says something different. It would probably say play 1080p HD movies or whatever. Go and download that app and dare in fact watch this movie for free. You can probably go into Google another of other things also, like letter C movies, and you could probably see pretty much any gosh darn thing for free. But yeah, check those out. Go through, if you have a portable device, dare in fact download those apps so you can watch everything for free. So, with that said, I think that's all that I want to go out of my way to say about this movie in a very cryptic like sense. Um, let's get into it in spoiler sense. A really severely fun movie that at the end of the day, people may not understand why like I enjoy this because they're like, no, this movie sucked. This movie was too slow. This movie was whatever. I had a ball. So with this, let's go out of our way to say it's that customary time yet again to go into this thing called spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time I get to spoil this movie. So, very beginning of this piece, we of course have these Walmart workers. And we have this one guy, I believe his name is Monty, who's putting up this sign for Black Friday. And it seems that there is to be this one woman pressing and trying to get into this store. And the one guy has to ask, like, seriously? Like, how long have these people been waiting out here? And they're like, well, yeah, like, they've been waiting out there since, like, noon. And he's like, God, these vultures, like, good God, like, have a life kind of thing. That's immediately what I would say. Because you would have these people that would be, like, staying out there from, like, the whole entire night to be, like, first in line for some goofy thing. And it doesn't actually make like much bit of sense because like there's a severely limited quantity of stuff that you're going to get. I think now they try to figure out to like do little like tickets to give to people so they won't have to wait in line that long. And like that's a good thing, but then that's also just like, well, hey, like I want to like I've been waiting out here too, and like and you have one person that asks for the same thing throughout the whole entire day. It'll always be that one product that was to be like this big, huge, massive sale. And I'm like, yeah, that was gone at like the first 5 minutes after this store is open. This thing is sold out. We don't have any more. And they're like, well, are you sure? Like, yeah, that's hence why it was a doorbuster. Oh, okay. Great. So all of a sudden we have Monty who's going through this this Walmart to all of a sudden see this weird, goofy like goop of a thing. It's this weird like ugly slime gross thing, which I don't know how to explain it. It looks like if you had like if the slime from Ghostbusters was an actual thing, was an actual entity that like that smushed itself together in some kind of assortment of some kind of ball-esh like thing, because I guess this is to be some egg that just appeared somewhere for some goofy reason. Like they don't explain that it's some like it came from space or like no, it just bizarrely just arrives at this All Might store or All Mart store, you would have thought they would have had some kind of unique story about it where it would have, like, came off of some truck and was in some crate from some country randomly somewhere. And you would have thought that that would have been the perfect thing for this to have, like, come out of, but it didn't. It just randomly appears in some Walmart store. So this one guy ends up getting infected first, and so the other two Walmart employees go and try to find where this guy is, and they're like, "Hey, where is this guy?" And then they end up getting infected too, leading to their deaths. So now we transition to go into the other store, the We Love Toys store co-workers, people that work at that store, you know. So Ken is to go off and deliver his kids to, I guess, his ex-wife's home, and his kids are like, "Oh, like, you seriously have to work on Black Friday?" And Ken is like, "Well, we're really looking at it, kids. Like, the military works on Black Friday. Like, the police and the firemen and the whoever, they all work on Black Friday. So do I." It's like, yeah, I know a lot of people, like, even for me, I would make that comparison when I would go and I would work on a Black Friday, and everybody like, are we seriously gonna have to work on Black Friday? I'm like, yeah. Like, are we seriously gonna have to work on Thanksgiving? Yeah. Like, and you're gonna have probably the worst possible shift on that day too. And it'll be probably like from like midnight to noon the next day or some goofy thing where like you'll have not have figured out how to get that kind of sleep schedule, and it's redonkulous. And so, but anyways, let's back again. Me getting my stupid bitterness crap out, but like you, like, the woodwork always comes out of certain people and certain coworkers and whatever. But like I always also want to, like, if people have never worked in retail before, like, they always need to kind of hear these kinds of stories because they're always kind of fun. So Ken is to go on, and he is to not really even be able to go and eat anything for legitimate Thanksgiving. So Ken is to go off and pick up a guy named Chris. And for some reason, Chris to me looks so familiar, but I can't quite, for the life of me, figure out exactly where he's from. I think I had seen My Dead Ex lately, and I think that might actually be it. Some Netflix series called like My Dead Ex or something like that, and that actually might be where he's from. But he kind of looks vastly different from that show to this. So Ken and Chris like are to have, I guess, this carpool because I guess they're just really good friends. But then you wouldn't think of that towards we get the later part of this episode where they're really being honest with one another because the world is basically ending anyways. So Ken and Chris are going off to Thanksgiving, and so before Chris is to head off to work, uh, we have it to where like his family is like, "Oh, hey, yeah, happy Thanksgiving," and like Chris is like, "Yeah, happy Black Friday," and we have the one like dad who's just kind of like pissed about something, whether it's about uh like, "Hey man, you ruined our meal, like you ruined our Thanksgiving," like, just go to work kind of thing. Like he has some gripe about something, some crappy thing to say. So Chris goes off with Ken, and so they make it to the store, and like I think they make it to the back part of the store, and so, which is kind of convenient because a lot of places you would have to go on and like have to enter in the front of the store and then have to deal with a bunch of people. So we have the one guy who I guess was in the back room who had gone out to take a smoke, and he ended up getting locked out. Which I'm like, yeah, of course, like that always happens where you have the one smoker that's that locked himself out, and then like he's banging on the door for like several hours. It's like, hey man, I was been waiting out there for several hours, and it was like, dude, it was like 2 minutes. And he like is moaning and complaining that he like is probably gonna have to go all the way to the front of the store, but by the time that he actually, let me pause here for 1 second, and we're back. I had to leave for a second. So the smoker ends up going, and it's to think that he's gonna have to walk around the store, but by that time he is to of course gotten attacked by a zombie. And yeah, so so the next scene we have Arnie, who is to go, or Marnie, who is to go and talk to this truck driver who is to deliver this load. And this guy's name is Lou, and they know this guy by name. And I'm like, I'm sorry, like, for a lot of truck drivers, most of the time it's usually one, their first day ever of driving this truck. That's a numerous thing that happens every single day. So most of the time you wouldn't know this person by name. That's a very rare occurrence. But I guess these people are overly just curious about a truck driver's name, so they know that it's Lou. But maybe this guy is just be a coincidental, reoccurring truck driver, which just rarely happens. I can see if this guy was like a FedEx or UPS driver, they would know that guy's name probably, because like there's always like this dialogue or rapport between them, and so normally you would get to know their name and so on and so forth. Um, because usually they'd have to sign away their life for something that is to be delivered on that day. It's kind of funny how this truck ends up getting delivered and no one gives a about it being unloaded. Like no one really cares about it whatsoever, as if it's just going to be left there, which actually makes no sense. Like for me, you would have this immediate like everybody would have to crazily have to get all of these boxes that are to be out of this truck, because like, hey, sell more product and sell it as quickly as possible. I don't know how many times that I've had to go and dig through a truck just to find one stitch of product, because they said, oh yeah, there's a quantity of one somewhere in this truck somewhere, so dig in and go through every single box to find this one item that may be in this truck, but it never really is. And it's like, I'm sorry, that's gonna, like, I'm not only emptying out this truck, but it's gonna take me hours to go and find this product. Can't you just tell this person that we don't have it? Well, it says that there's one on the truck. I'm like, okay, like, but this person is gonna take a while for us to find this item. They'll wait, okay, so, like, hopefully they go to a movie and come back and, like, we'll have this here, because it takes forever to not only empty out a truck, but then find a specific item within a truck. But yeah, nobody has any concern about emptying out this truck, which bugs me. But oh well, it's like, I guess they figure that that's going to be their like truck thing for the next day. Which, man, that's kind of nice. To just be like, yeah, like this is just going to be a replenishment from when you guys empty all this out. But maybe they just kind of do their thing a different way. But pushing on. I'm taking too much time. I already realized that. I apologize. So we go on and we have Ken going and talking to Marnie, and they're kind of having these like knock knock jokes. and Ken is asking Marnie out for pancakes, and because Marnie's kind of Ken is hitting on Marnie, he's trying to get her out for a date. But really looking at it, Marnie is younger than Ken, like I guess 20 years supposedly younger, and so you have these just kind of weird relationships that just spurn through retail because nobody else is just a good enough candidate at some point. So it's just like, well, like maybe this is like, since this guy is a nice enough guy. So uh so Ken is to, as the story is to like start opening, I think we end up seeing Ken just kind of mostly just kind of be like, I guess, the guy on the floor, it seems. uh we also have this brand new person named Emmett who appears on this day of Black Friday, and I'm like, oh my god. You have a brand new person that has to get trained in on Black Friday. That actually surprisingly happens more so than you think. Like, you would have a lot of people that bizarrely get hired on a holiday, and you're like, dude, this is the worst time to train you. Like, but we're gonna try our best. Like, normally it's like a holiday, or it's just the most inconvenient day to have to just have a unprepared person to do this job. And I just feel like so bad for that person, but I'm just like, hey man, you gotta really just quickly learn this, and there's no easy way for you to do that. So Emmett, I guess, is to be, unfortunately, this new worker. And so we just have Ken telling Emmett, hey, like, you know what you should do when anybody is to ask you, like, where anything is? And, like, asking you, like, where a yo-yo is. And Emmett's like, yeah, I'll go and I'll take him down where the yo-yo aisle is. And Ken is like, no. You go and you, like, point to an aisle of where it is. That's all you do. I'm like, you know what? That would probably be the way of which that a worker normally does that. It's like, oh yeah, down the aisle, 2 rows. Like, go straight and then off to your left and you'll immediately find it. Like, that's normally the way of, like, doing things, like, actually point to where it is. But, like, it gets to the point now in much more retail where they want, like, you to actually, like, walk with a person all the way down to that area, show them where it is, and, like, not only that, but then, like, help them even more with their purchase to figure out, like, what exactly they're going to buy. And then once they finally pick something up and put it in their cart, you are done for the day and you can walk off. So, and a lot of people will definitely understand that if they go into retail, and plus a lot of people would have their own ways about doing their retail like thing. And they'll be like, oh no, that's inaccurate. No. Which is perfectly understandable because they have a different way of approach or whatever. Like, yeah, like, you definitely would have been fired if you went and did this job. Like, hence why I don't work at retail anymore. I haven't done it in a while, because it was just really, like, injuring, dangerous, any number of things. So, it really was. So, we go on, and so Chris is to be manning this register, and it doesn't feel like Chris has had a ton of experience on the register. So Chris is going and, like, punching out these numbers in this register, and weirdly the register has, like, jam or some kind of weird goopy substance on it that makes no sense. I don't know how many times I would go through a register, and I don't know how freaking dirty they get. Like, I just, like, what the do people put in these registers? Do they put, like, gum on them? Do they put jam on them? I don't know how many times I'll go through and I'll have to do something with a register goofily, and I find out there's, like, gum on some part of the register, and I'm like, oh my god, like, why would someone do that? That's so gross. So Chris is to, of course, go on and like his register has jam on it, and so we have this person named Brian who is to just kind of ridicule Chris for his register bizarrely having jam on it, and so this grandmother is to be all ticked off to the point of her having to sit on this one throne to like chair to be waited to get infected because there is to be some infected thing underneath her chair. Uh, so, but before this story even opens, we have Bruce Campbell coming in, who's Jonathan Wexler, who is to give these people the stereotypical like morality speech, just like, hey guys, like what do we love? Toys. Yeah. Like he used to have this like inspirational speech that is the most stereotypical like thing that you could say in this thing to kind of like get everybody geared up for Black Friday. and and so we also have like Brian, who's also trying to like force everybody to like, yeah, like give me some vigor, like, yeah, uh like really just go and like be excited, and you're like, yeah. No. Like I know how bad this is going to be. No. But hey, yeah, sure, all right, like you're getting paid time and a half, all right. So that's the only exciting thing. And like Ken is really relying on some holiday bonus, and that's the only reason why he's really working today. So we find out that there is to, of course, be some defective doll that is to have these like weird, bizarre sayings that don't quite make sense for a doll to be saying at any point in time. And I honestly want to find out who the actual voice of that bear is, because for some reason it sounds very familiar for whatever goofy reason. Uh, and it's kind of funny because they have like Curse of Chucky weirdly playing in the background, and I'm wondering if the people that did this movie also did that one. Or, yeah, I'm not seeing it anywhere. Weirdly, the person that did the voice for the bear weirdly sounded like Seth Green. I don't know why. But anyways, so Chris is going out and doing some kind of job of sorts, I guess, asking people if they need help at some point. And supposedly Ken was to have gotten, or was to have supposedly gotten the carts from outside, and Magni is to find, or Marnie is to find out later that evidently Ken didn't go and get the carts from the night before. That they're all just out there because, you know, a lot of times there's stuff where like you just don't have time to get carts because you have to do a number of other things, especially when it's like right as Black Friday, where like, hey man, like could you stay like an hour late or 2 hours late to just do this one project? It's like, well, like I also have to go and get carts and any number of other things, and they're just like, well, like like how would you just kind of like leave that? And so not only that, you're gonna have to spend like 2 hours over your shift, but then you're gonna have to spend that extra like XYZ time, which is probably about 20 to 30 minutes, getting these carts. And while everyone is just like, hey man, hurry up, we want to leave, and I'm like then freaking help me. Like get carts. Like that's always how it is. It's like you have the one people that are like, hey man, like I want to leave, like it's this XYZ holiday, and I'm just like, freaking help me then, help me get carts. And some people are nice enough and they do that because they realize like, hey man, this person stayed X amount of time um, off his schedule, like we all want to get out of here, so let's kind of rush and help him out, which is a very nice gesture but a very rare thing that happens. So, so let's get to the meat and potatoes. So, Chris is going off and is to help customers, and there's to be this one husband and couple, and this one husband is to mention that he's sick. And I'm like, then go home. Go home. If you're sick, go home. He's like, I'm sick. I'm not feeling good. Then go home. Like, why are you here just coughing and farting on people? Like, go home. Like, you have a wife that can stay in line and get all these things and whatever. Because you probably had all these people like staying up the night before, just like waiting to get all these items absurdly. So everybody rushes through this store, and so Chris is going and helping somebody. And I think that first angry husband, or that one husband who's mentioned, I'm sick, he ends up turning into a zombie and attacking Chris. And so Chris is to, of course, get away from this one guy, but then all of a sudden there's be another zombied woman that comes from behind Chris, who I think is the wife of this husband. And so Chris now like gets away from this woman and drops like all these loads of balls like right on top of this woman. And so Chris is to run off in the back room and explain what had happened. And so weirdly, they're treating Chris like he's insane. And so they like zip tie him to this chair. And so all the managers are to say like, yeah, Chris, you're going to go to jail. And like, Chris is just like, but I saw what I saw. Like the shoppers, they're going wild. And so all of a sudden we start to get certain employees that start to funnel into this back room. And so what ends up happening is we have one of the God, I'm trying to get this perfectly like correct. Because what ends up happening is we end up having one of our brand new workers, Emmett, who ends up getting infected, and he too ends up going to the back room. And so he's like, yeah, like these shoppers are getting really wild, like, and like I don't know what's gonna happen to me. And so all of a sudden we have coming off the walkies that I guess they are to have, mentioning that the shoppers are really going wild, and like people are kind of stealing stuff and all kinds of stuff. People are looting and rioting and whatever. They're going and watching from the back room, seeing all the chaos that is to ensue. And so Emmett is to, of course, turn into this zombie. And so because Emmett is just start foaming at the mouth, and so he drops, and so we have Ken who's trying to help Emmett, like thinking that he's just sick, and so we have Anita who steps in, is like, okay, like the first aid manual and this and that, and like what we should really do. And we had before this kind of Anita kind of sounding off about certain workers, and like how they're not really good at their job and whatever and what have you. So, but Anita, once this guy is to fall down, she's to figure out a way to try and help him, which Emmett ends up going and infecting Anita and supposedly killing her. And they're like, oh like, oh my god, like this is really happening. So they then have to go and like figure out how to kill like Emmett at first, which they really can't figure it out. And like it's funny when we have this monstrous creature, because everybody's all of a sudden to be this like really cool like bad ASS character were like, yeah, like, like we even have, I think, Ruth, who's to be kind of like the older lady of them, like spouting out this one thing of sorts. And so, but eventually both these monsters kind of leave this back room. And so now everybody in the back room is just kind of panicking, not knowing really what to do. And so Marnie is telling Jonathan, who is to be Bruce Campbell's character, like, hey, you're the manager, manage us, like tell us what to do, help us survive this. And we just have uh Wexler, who is just like, I don't know, like I don't know what I can do, because like I'm just supposed to be here to make this store profitable. Like I'm just supposed to make revenue for this store, and that's all that I know. And so like Wexler is to go and take this champagne bottle, and he's like, yeah, like this is the crappiest champagne that they could have given me uh for being like number one in sales, like I'm sure it's what it really was. And so we go on here, and so the plan for them is to eventually go on and try to make it through uh, parts of the store and try to avoid getting uh, taken by these zombies. And because they're thinking about going through the front door and just getting the heck out of here, because this is like ground zero, basically. So we have Archie, who kind of takes point and is to go and tell everybody like who to like partner up with and like where to go. And so Wexler is to mention that he's gonna like partner up with Brian. I really just, and we find out later why that is, because Wexler is to basically say, I guess between the two of them, Brian is just like bigger and slower. So if anything happens, like Wexler can just push Brian in front of him and just have them eat Brian while he gets away. So we also had the moment before this whole thing kicks off, where both Wexler and Ken went to the bathroom, and so Ken was to go into the bathroom and was to get his private stash of alcohol, which he ends up breaking. And Wexler is like, "Hey man, don't do that! Like, you can't do that in this store." And Wexler's like, "Hey man, the world's ending and all things are going horribly awry, and like I'm gonna get my private stash," which he breaks. All of a sudden, we find out Lou, who Marnie had talked to, had went to Ken and had mentioned, "Hey man, like where's the bathroom?" And so Ken pointed him out to where the bathroom is. And so Lou had gone into the bathroom, and he too had gotten sick, and he too had become a zombie. And so Lou bursts through this bathroom stall and is attacking Ken. And so Lou is on top of Ken, and Ken is desperately asking Wexler to help him out. While I guess Wexler was to pinch off a loaf, I guess, and just kind of help Ken out in this situation. So Wexler goes and tosses Ken something to stab Lou with, and so they're like, "Yeah, like we did it." It's like, "Yeah, we did." So, and I know I'm backpedaling, and I know I'm trying to get everything in a nice, neat little bow in here. Uh, we also find out that Marnie is to realize that all of these zombies are weirdly like smooshing into this like alien like what is the perfect word? Alien cocoon or alien like uh alien smashing or zombie smashing together like thing, like as if this is kind of from the movie Slither or from god what would be a perfect way of comparing this, where you would eventually have a bunch of monsters all like smushing themselves together to become one bigger monster. This seems to be what the plan is to consistently have these zombies all smushed together into this one seemingly cocoon of something to burst out into this larger Stay Puft Marshmallow Man kind of monsterish being, which this monster does not look as pretty as Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It looks very much like this half uh, man, half turkeyed monster, and like it crashes through the the top of this building and is wreaking havoc in the building. But that happens way later. So we eventually have all of our people trying to make it to the front of the store. Arnie, who I guess is to be this back stockroom guy, is to evidently have not only this nail gun, which you see in the picture here, but then he also is to have these like assortment of knives, which I'm like, yeah, for a lot of like backroom guys, a lot of the knives that people are to have in the back room are normally garbage. Like, especially the more current variations of, like, a lot of retail places, they have their shittiest backroom knives. The knife of which that, honestly, Archie has in this movie, like, I don't find that all that accurate that, like, this guy would have this kind of knife because it looks like a real legitimate knife. But, like, it's whatever. It's a film. So Archie is to go on and he is to try to protect Chris from getting taken. And so Ken goes off and is to try and ward off all these zombies, which he does a really good job because, of course, Michael J. White does a really good job at what he does because he's a very combat skilled like person. And so much about this weirdly like reminded me of the movie Predator, and I was kind of wondering if there was any kind of Predator music that kind of sifted in here somewhere. Because, like, I was kind of hearing the soundtrack. I'm like, is that seriously, like, the Predator soundtrack somewhere in there that they slipped in? Like, without people probably noticing it? It sounded like it. But yeah, so we have Archie who ends up going and having some zombie end up going and using its like tether like thing to grab Archie by the head and take him in and I guess like kill him off. So we just see like body parts just splatter onto the ground. So I guess this character didn't turn into a zombie, it was just killed. Uh, Archie was just killed, sadly enough. So everybody is to eventually scramble to the front of the store, and so Ruth is to go and be right in front of this door, and so all of a sudden we end up seeing this police car that comes crashing through this door and is to, of course, kill Ruth in the process. And we just find out that these are more zombies and more whatever. So now everybody's to scramble all the way back to the back room and put some kind of thing against this door so the zombies won't break through. So now all the people are like, well, hey, like, it can't get any worse, right? All of a sudden the power ends up going out. And I'm like, what is it? Was it the timer? Or like, because a lot of stores, they have a timer on a store where the power completely goes out, and because they assume that the store is actually closed. And there's sometimes where, like, Thanksgiving stores going into Black Friday, there's sometimes where, like, Thanksgiving stores will sometimes have these weird, goofy hours that make no actual sense, where they'll be open for like 5 hours, and then they'll close up shop, and then they'll reopen at like 5 in the morning, absurdly. Uh, and then they kind of go through the rest of the day. But the further and further that we're going into Thanksgiving, like, Thanksgiving for a store is just seemingly open, or even has even worse hours than, like, probably even like Christmas time, just because, like, it's a big event for a store. Whoop de doo. So, just the bitterness, or the B worded and moaning. Um, but hey, like, if you make it through a Black Friday, you make it through, like, the worst just time to shop. It's never even December. It's not even where it's close to Christmas time. Like, you get people who, like, I think they made it perfectly understandable in this movie, where there's a lot of uh customers that don't know when to go home. Where people will just be like, "Oh, like, are you guys closing?" Like, "Oh, I'll stay for another 2 hours." Like, and we're trying to, like, push them off to just say, "Hey, the store's closed." And they're like, "Oh, you're closed," and they'll stay for like another hour, just like meh, like, because they conveniently come within they know it's like the last 5 minutes before the store closes, because it's the same hours every day. Like, "Oh, I thought I could just shop for another 2 hours after you guys close, because I want to have that own personal treatment." Because you can say people aren't doing it on purpose, but you can just tell they're doing it on purpose. Even though you warn them and you tell them, "Hey, store's closing," they're just like, "No, I'm just going to keep on shopping and getting every single item I can possibly get." B word and moaning. So these guys in the back room, and so now they're really going in and really finding out even more so about these last surviving people, where now they have the time of really being honest, because they're probably all going to die soon. And so we have kind of Ken going at Chris and telling him, it's like, "Hey man, like, you have a lot to learn, kid." And Chris is just like, "Well, like, hey, like, I can't be your kid because I've seen you so often." And it's like, ooh, snap. Like, evidently Ken is just like I guess a bad dad, I guess. And so, like, they're saying that now. It's like, ooh. So Chris is delaying to Ken to mention that, like, he thinks that he's so cool, and, like, usually everybody at a store, like, there's always that one person that always thinks that they're so cool, and that they're like they're the friendliest person, weirdly. And I'm just like, why is this person so friendly? like like, you always have that, either like, you always have that, like, really overly happy person, or you always think you have the one person that is to be either so cool, or the person that, like, "Oh yeah, I know so much more than anybody does." And there's some times where that is actually true, because, like, nobody's really know what they're doing. um and you're looking at towards that one person who knows the most stuff, and they're not going to tell you a lick of anything, which is great. So everybody is just kind of chewing into one another. Uh, Eventually, Marnie is to tell Ken the truth, that they weren't ever really going to ever date or be a couple or whatever. And Ken thought that that's technically what they were doing, because at one point they had made out in the back room, and Wexler is like, "Whoa, wait, what?" He's like, "What, huh? You guys made out back here?" And so Ken was like, "Well, Marnie, what was pancakes? Like, I thought we were gonna have pancakes." And Marnie's like, "No, like, I don't even know you. Like, I've never really seen you outside of this store, and like, I've never seen your kids, and I've never seen this, and I've never seen that." And so Ken and Marnie, like, we also had Brian, who's to justify to Ken. It's like, well, yeah, like, she's 20 years younger than you. Like, find somebody your own age, kind of thing. So, uh, so eventually, also like Wexler is to just kind of talk about uh, like everyone eventually is to talk about their backstories and how long that they've like either been in retail or just been at this store. And so uh, Chris is to mention that I think he's been there for like 2 years, and that when his father was to hear that his son was to be hired into the store, he ended up telling him like, "Well, hey, welcome to corporate hell." And because Chris was to, when he was a kid, love to come to this store and and buy out a bunch of things, and so but then when he actually starts to work here, he realizes how much he doesn't like it. And so uh, Marnie is to mention that she had been here for I think 7 years or something, but like she didn't have her name card to like throw into the fire supposedly. Uh, Brian was to mention um, that Brian was to go off and like be a veterinarian or something, and that 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 Brian ended up just getting stuck there, being a manager. And so Wexler wanted to work there because he felt like he wanted to be wanted by somebody, like how uh really he was the guy with the answers, and he was uh the guy to be able to do all these things for all these people. Like that was the real thing that he really enjoyed, was eventually having to have people really depend on him and whatever. And to the point where I guess Wexler doesn't even have a place to go to Thanksgiving. And so everybody of course is whining and complaining how they can't go home, and Wexler's like, "Yeah, I know, I get it. It's like it's a holiday. It's you want to be with your family and da 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 da, but like now we can't go. Like now we have to stay here." And it's the kind of interesting breakdown of all of this. God, there was one other moment that I think I wanted to talk about that I think was like before this. So, um, like before they got into this room, but I'm trying to think of what it was. It'll probably come to me. So they finally decide that they want to go back, or they finally decide that once they kind of get these like all these glow stick items, and Marnie is to go and give everybody turkey, which is just this lunch meat, because that's all they could find. Like everybody's like, okay, like we now have to figure out another way to just get the heck out of here. And so we have Emmett coming back into the back room, and supposedly he infects Ken. He has a bite on his arm. And so now we have Ken telling the rest of the people, okay, like you guys have to get out of here. You guys have to go on without me because I'm going to turn soon. And so now, like, the rest of the people left all go into this semi truck trailer. And conveniently, there is some opening on the top of this truck, which rarely ever is to actually be a thing. Because anybody would be worried about that, like somebody stealing from this truck. So there would never be a top opening of a truck. But I don't know. Like, I think I've seen more than enough trucks where I've never seen that actually happen. That there's an opening in a truck, but inaccuracies at some point. Chris, I guess, is the only small enough person to be able to go and like get from out of this semi truck trailered uh like hole on top of the semi. And so a lot of people are kind of placing bets if Chris is even going to be able to like get this truck or move this truck or do anything. And so Chris is trying to like push random buttons to try to get this car to start, and nothing's working. And so zombies are starting to come, so Chris ditches this whole thing and goes right back into the trailer where he's telling everybody, yeah, like this isn't going to work. So now we have Ken, who's to be in the store just kind of waiting for him to turn. And so he decides, like, well, you know what I'm going to do? Like, instead, like, I'm just going to go and, like, figure a way out of here. And so Ken is to weirdly put on these roller skates for whatever goofy reason. And so Ken is to go, like, rollerblading through the store, I guess, thinking that he can, like, quickly evade anything if he is to go and have these rollerblades. And so him and this bear just having this dialogue between one another. And so we just consistently have this bear who's saying all this weird dialogue. Like it's all this kind of random crap that he just says consistently. And this defective bear ends up starting to light on fire. And so Ken is to douse this bear into these boxes so this bear can just burn up the store so it can possibly wipe out more of these zombies. So Ken is to make his way through this store to eventually find some grandma zombie that he is to try and, I think it's called Monster Angry Gran. Sure. And so Ken starts fighting this like old granny off, and then he tries to hide from her underneath these boxes. And so this angry granny ends up going and seeing this rollerblade, and so he grabs it, or the granny grabs it to find that it's just attached to some bear. And so, like, there was the one spot where we had this angry grandmother that was yelling at at honestly at Ken at one point, because Ken was like, God, these customers. And like the grandmother's like, what did you just say, young boy? Or something like that. And like she had some retort to him. And so yeah, Ken just went and put this one box back on the shelf of where these toys were, to just kind of fill that gap of where she poked her head out, because she insulted him, because like rightfully so, he's like, God, these stupid customers. And then she had some retort, and so he's like, well, I'm just gonna shove this box into this hole where your head is at. Because you just have these overly frustrated customers for whatever goofy reason on this day, because there just always has to be that. They get wild. So, but this grandmother ends up going into this cocoon-like fold of things. And so what ends up happening is that uh, the rest of the people are to go back into the back room, and so they realize that the store is starting to catch on fire, and so for the they head for the ceiling of the store because there's nowhere else to really go. And so now Ken is to make his way to this front of the store and just try to get out of here. And so we have finally where Wexler is to lose his freaking mind and is to finally just sacrifice himself because he is to spout out about the customer's always right and this and that and all this nonsense. Uh, and so, because these zombies are trying to make it through this one part of this ceiling, this part of this roof, not ceiling, roof. Uh, and so Wexler just goes and, like, you know what? Like, I can't take it anymore. And so Wexler's just gonna go on and on about this speech, and what's wrong with him? Like, I think he's just lost it. He's lost his mind. So Wexler is trying to slam these fingers down, so that way they'll stop like trying to get at them. And so Wexler just opens this door and jumps on all these zombies and decides to just get killed off. And they're like, "Oh my god!" So now that the rest of these store people are to realize that uh, that this store is basically going to just burn up, they decide to go and jump into this dumpster. And so Marnie is to go and tell the rest of his workers the truth that the bite that Ken had was actually from him. And I was like, of course. Like, so it's some kind of ruse to just be like, yeah, we wanted to get rid of somebody, and Brian was to just go and bite Ken to get rid of him. And Ken, while in the store, is to go and find that out that Brian had like tricked him and that he isn't actually bitten, because he finds the like piece of skin, uh, and I guess Brian's little towel thing or something. So they go and they jump into this dumpster, and so now Marnie is to toss a thing of trash onto Brian, and both Chris and Marnie are to try and desperately make it to the parking lot to see if there's anybody that left like keys in their car or something. They're just kind of scrambling through the parking lot. And so they end up meeting Ken into this parking lot. And so Marnie's ticked that Ken never got the carts, I guess, from the XYZ time before. So all three of these characters are now in this parking lot. And so all of a sudden, we have this monster, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, kind of Black Friday turkey man monster thing, just crashing through the ceiling. And they're like, oh my god, what is that? So all of a sudden, Brian is to see this thing. And he's like, well, hey, like, maybe I can reason with it. Like, maybe I can talk to it. Maybe, like, I can come to some kind of... maybe I can come to some kind of, like thing with it or something, just to get it to go away. Or so all of a sudden Brian is to go on to this monster and is to just go and like spout out about a number of things that are to be like a normal thing that a worker would say to a customer, talking about like, yeah, like we have so many memes. Remember Black Friday in 2016? Whew, you know, right? Like, me and you, we're the same, you know? So Brian is trying to go and coax this entity and having like common ground and like telling all these stories to like have this thing just kind of treat it like it's its own. And so the creature ends up just going and taking uh Brian and smacking him away, I guess, killing him off. So now Chris is to come up with this strategy of uh driving this forklift, because I guess weirdly this forklift is to now bizarrely be in this parking lot, and that doesn't make sense at all. We have where Chris had supposedly gone and done this random training of this forklift, and he's like, yeah, I don't even know why I did that training. Like, it took so much time for me to learn that whole thing. And Archie, when he was still alive, it's like, well, maybe you're gonna use that like someday, like foreshadowing to the end of the movie. So Chris is to go and use this forklift, and he is to wait till this monster is to use its tether to latch on to Chris. And so now Chris is now like reversing this forklift to have this tether be so stretched out. And then Chris lets go of this forklift and jumps out of it. And it's like a slingshotting like thing where all of a sudden this forklift is to fling right into the face of, or one of the faces of this monster, and gets it in the eye. And so this monster pulls this thing out of his face, and so it ends up falling over, and I guess it ends up burning up and dying. And so, like, okay, great, like, yeah, we did it. And so they all end up going into their car, and now Candace mentioned to Arnie that, or Marnie, that we're gonna go and finally go and get those pancakes, like he had said. Even though the world's ending, they're still gonna go and get them pancakes. So as they're driving off, all of a sudden in the distance somewhere, we see another uh like massive monster in the background, saying that this is, I guess, happening all over the gosh darn place, and that there might be a sequel possibly in store somewhere down the road. Maybe a more even worse off like Black Friday, but I would love if this just turns into a yearly franchise of a thing. Like, if they can go and do other Black Friday films, that would be fun. I would love this movie if there was some kind of franchise that pops out of this. But a yearly franchise, don't know if that's possibly going to be in the cards. But really fun movie. I really did enjoy it. There's probably a lot of stuff that I forgot about along the way here, but I tried to do like the best stuff or whatever I could just kind of like get out dialogue wise. Um, but yeah, we also had one point where Ken was to mention that he had received a text via his kids mentioning that there is some safe place for them to be, and so that they're safe and that they're and everything's fine. And so that's where the three of the survivors are going to head at the end of this, but they're of course getting a detour so they can go and get those pancakes. So with that said, this was about an hour and eight. This was almost like 80 minutes long, and I've almost gotten to that point. If there's something that I did forget, which is bound to happen, I know there's probably some detail that it's gonna just frustrate me that I forgot. Oh, this one little thing, or this one little thing, this one little something. Um, I know that's bound to happen. So I really enjoyed this movie, and I hope that you enjoyed it as well. I'm going to get the heck out of here so I can go and put this up as a review. Definitely one of my top 10 films. Really enjoyed it, really loved it. So yeah, go ahead and check this out without a doubt. if you're a worker or a shopper because it's fun. So with that said, goodbye everybody. Bye everybody.